Well, as Ian said, I'm James, and we're going to talk about how to nail social and political issue advertising on Meta. We've got a little bit of experience in this at Social Firefly, mainly because of mine and Mel's background. We both were in charities and public sector. I spent 10 years in policing, and there's baby-faced me as a PCSO all the way up to a digital communications manager for Sussex Police and a special constable. I spent my days dealing with trolls online, and I spent my nights arresting trolls in the streets. So I know a little bit about the good and the bad parts of society and how both parts use communication tools to get their way. And that's what we're talking about with social and political issue advertising. Social media can be used for good. We know that the Ice Bucket Challenge was a bit silly, but it did raise enough funds for an actual breakthrough for ALS. And more recently, the Turkey earthquake appeal from the British Red Cross did raise donations and share the message about the problems in Turkey and Syria. But it can also be used for bad. And we're going to stick with that bad for a little bit of a history lesson into how we got to where we are now. So, 2016, you can't see that very well, there we go. He loves his shirt off, doesn't he, Putin? 2016, Russian interference in the US elections. Russian operatives reached an estimated 10 million users with 470 Facebook accounts. What was their deal? They really wanted to provoke and amplify political and social discord in the United States. At the same time, Trump was doing exactly the same thing. He was spending between 50 and 60,000 variations of Facebook ads each day. Between them, the Clinton and the Trump campaigns spent $81 million on Facebook advertising. But specifically, the Trump campaign wanted to target black voters and discourage them from voting. But guess what? Trump won. You see, the political system in the US is kind of like the Wild West for advertising. It's not as restricted as other Western democracies, and they've got much longer advertising periods. But this time, 2016, it was even more dangerous because mass marketing went away and we were looking at micro-targeting with Facebook. But good old Zucky B here, he didn't think it was a problem, right? He said it was stupid. He didn't say exactly those words. It was stupid that Facebook fake news had influenced the Trump campaign in any way. But it had. Around about the same time, the Cameron versus Miliband campaign, Conservatives reached 80% of users in targeted constituencies, and they spent 10 times more than Labour on their advertising in Meta. And guess what? They won. Oh, one other thing, which is, I think, pretty sinister, they decided to ditch Twitter advertising because those people are too politically engaged to be influenced by ads. So they really focused on people that were going to be influenced. But guess what? They won. 2016 Brexit referendum, the Vote Leave campaign, and the Latin warbler himself, Boris Johnson, 1 billion targeted ads served to voters over 10 weeks. They ran ads like this. They were designed to make us angry. They were designed to them and us, the UK, and the EU. The big problem about these ads, we didn't know where they were coming from and who was behind these ads. Summer 2018, something changed. Mark Zuckerberg realized there was a problem and he needed to do something about it. So we suddenly got every political ad linked to a Facebook page. Demographic information was provided about the audiences being targeted, and transparency sections were added to pages. As an example, and a lot of you will have seen this before, this is an example of an ad where you can see there's a disclaimer. We know who has paid for this ad. If we click the little options button, we know why you're seeing this ad. If you click the little I, the information button, you'll find out who paid for this ad and why you're seeing it. You even get contact details for the people in charge of this ad. And on the pages, a similar thing. We know who is responsible for the page. We know where the individual people who run the page are residing, UK, Kenya, and the US. And actually, we will know if they're running ads about social issues, elections, and politics. And those ads can be found in the ad library. The specific social and political issue ones can be found for up to 7 years. So things have changed, there's a lot of restrictions, but we wouldn't all be in this room if we didn't know that social ads are cheaper, largely unregulated, and have powerful databases of information. So while there are now restrictions, thanks to 2015, 2016, organisations that want to run social and political issue ads are still going to be using Meta because of these reasons. Oh, and you can target different messages to different people. You can change tactics, messages, and budgets really quickly. And that's not changed a lot. The interests targeting has changed a bit, but it's still extremely powerful despite the new restrictions within Meta. So we know it's powerful. We know how we got here. How do we get prepared to run social and political issue ads? Firstly, if you're running any kind of campaign on Meta about any of these topics within the EU or the UK, Meta thinks that you need a disclaimer. We need to know who these messages are coming from. So firstly, if you're thinking about running those type of campaigns, remember it's probably going to be a social and political issue campaign, and you need to be verified to run that campaign. In the US, it's slightly different. You have a couple of other subjects. Unsurprisingly, you have education and guns in the US added to this. And there's around about 240 regions and countries where you have to use a social political issue ad if you want to run anything about these subjects. Really quick definition. For all of those subjects, they provide you a definition of what they think civil and social issue rights ads look like. Basically, you cannot have an opinion about LGBT rights, about women's rights, without declaring who you are, without being verified, and without being able to trace your ads all the way back to your organisation. We spoke about countries a little bit. So if you're running different ads in different countries, you need to make sure that your ad account is in the currency of the country you're running ads in. You also need to make sure that the person running the ads are able to prove that they're living in the country where they are. We found, especially in the US recently, some admins having to have a letter sent to them from Meta to just prove that they live where they say they live. So these are two really big hoops to jump through. You need to have ad accounts that are in the currency of the country you're running ads in, and you need to have individual people in those countries who are verified to run social and political issue ads. Now, to some things you need to do to get it set up and ready to run social and political issue ads. Go into your business manager, go to business info, and make sure all of your business details are up to date. This is sending great signals to Meta that you can be trusted. Have a secure business manager. Somebody else spoke about 2FA earlier. This is really vital to secure your business manager and make sure that Meta can trust you. Have a backup admin as well. Get your page authorized. So this is the next kind of big hoop to jump through. Some of you might have to go to new pages experience because Facebook just love to change where everything is every now and then, don't they? But you will find under there issue, electoral and political issue ads, and you follow the process to get all the way through to your disclaimer. So creating a disclaimer means that on every ad about a social or political issue, there will be a disclaimer to say who it's paid by. I would say don't use your name, you don't really want to do that. but use the name of your organisation. And most importantly, make sure the details you fill in here are exactly the same as the details you filled in your business manager for business info. Next, confirm your identity. Now, your page can run social and political issue ads anywhere in the world, but you as an individual person can only run it in the place that you live. There are ways around it, VPNs, but they don't work for long. People have been caught out, we've been caught out. You need to have multiple people in different countries if you're running social and political issue ads in other countries. So you need to confirm your identity. And you tell Meta what country you're going to be running these ads in, and you send them your ID. This is really important. And at this stage, I really want to shout, stop using grey accounts, because people are still using grey accounts on Facebook, accounts that are just used for work purposes. That's against it's against Meta's terms and conditions. You know, you really need to just be using one Facebook account, your personal account, and it's that needs to be verified. So now we've gone through all of that, we know we're all set up and we're verified to run social and political issue ads. Let's look at building your campaign. And by the way, you can get these slides with a link at the end if you want to go through this process. Firstly, you've got to work out at the campaign level, do you want to fly under the radar and try to run a political issue ad without Facebook flagging it as such? Or do you play above board? And I would suggest if you know it's going to be a social and political issue ad, you play above board. And you tell Meta this is it's a social issue, elections or politics ad. Next, once you've sorted out your campaign, look at your audiences and timing. Now, as interests have become more difficult, there's less interests to target, we found lookalikes and broader audiences working really well. We've also found different languages performing really well too. This ad that we ran for the 3 million worked really well in Hungarian, Romanian and English, targeting very specific communities in the UK. You can experiment with interests, it's just becoming less and less useful, we find, especially with these type of ads. Try expats or people that lived in other countries, and avoid election periods. Now, this specific ad was during an election period, and it was absolutely fine, it was a local election. If you're running a social or political issue ad and you have an opinion, don't run it during the general election, or at least have it already set up 2 weeks before the general election. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to edit any of your campaigns during the election because they just don't want you changing that. The one thing you can edit is the budget, because we know that Meta loves more money. So that's absolutely fine. Here's an example of an audience we created recently for targeting people who might be interested in a Ramadan event that was specifically about eating disorders. And so we tested different interests. For instance, Ketek Ketek Ramadan is a TV show about food during Ramadan. And we also tested the lived-in, the expats as well, of countries that have a larger Muslim community. So you test and learn with these type of interests and behaviours. I would argue the behaviours are more important a lot of the time, and the locations. Again, the locations here are areas of the UK with a larger Muslim population. Now, we're going to talk about copy a little bit now, and this brings us back to this definition of the civil and social rights. With all of these definitions, they give you examples of any copy that needs a disclaimer. So, it's really obvious that these pieces of copy are about a social or political issue, and whoever is writing these ads have an actual opinion. This one, no opinion at all. It's not really going to grab anyone's attention. It's boring. But the ones where you're probably going to get more attention, that's where you definitely need to be verified to run social and political issue ads and have your disclaimer. On to the creatives. So these are some examples from some of our clients here. Couple of things to remember. This little I, the about this ad section, pops out at the beginning sometimes, so you don't want any content in the way of it. You've got to remember, for instance, in here, this is a story. We've got a paid for by Brighton Hove City Council at the bottom, and all of our content is out of the way of the learn more button, etc. Whereas this one is completely wrong, and we shouldn't have really used this story at all because there's stuff in the way. One note on this specific one, we found a lot of evidence that maps are working really well when you're talking about climate change, but also not having a CTA button on a traffic campaign really, really works so much better than having a button. It looks more like a post that you would see. If you decide to fly under the radar and you mention a politician, even if your post is just about an event, you're going to get flagged and you're not going to be able to run this ad. We weren't able to run this ad, but we ran loads of others. The only problem with this is we mentioned a politician. Had no opinion, but we mentioned a politician, so it's clearly political. It was rejected. This one, we attempted to run it without a disclaimer. Couldn't get through. It says climate change. Obviously, it needs to have a disclaimer, and we need to be honest that it is a social and political issue ad that we want people to care about. However, it's an ever-changing landscape. In 2022, this ad was flagged as a social and political issue. In 2023, this one wasn't. Now, the main difference is this is a video and it says break the bias on it, so maybe it has slight more of an opinion. But it's the same story, it's the same copy that we've been using. It's just an ever-changing landscape. What we have found is that if you stay in the Meta ecosystem, so this is a charity about domestic abuse survivors and women's rights, this didn't get flagged. This isn't a social political issue ad. But it has no landing page to review, so remember that Meta will review the landing page, and it's within the ecosystem, so you're less likely to get flagged. This one, however, was. It was flagged, you've got your disclaimer, you've got your information button, and people obviously Facebook has to check the landing page and review it. However, Facebook get it wrong, Meta gets it wrong. This is an ad for Brighton Philharmonic Orchestra, but it was declared as a housing ad, which is one of the special categories, and we weren't able to run it. All Facebook told us was, well, you've got to change the copy. There's nothing about housing in the copy. So we had to delete the whole campaign and start again with exactly the same copy, and it was fine. They get it wrong. So what do you do if the ads get rejected? Curl up in a ball and cry in the corner. That's the easiest way to deal with this. But in all honesty, you can appeal the decision under your account and under each of the ads as well. You can contact someone at Meta, but it's really potluck depending on who you talk to, whether it works or not, whether they know what they're talking about or not, unfortunately. But try it. Test and learn. These were not flagged as social issue ads. The main thing is we don't have a specific social issue that we're talking about here. We're just saying we want you to donate. If we'd said Cyclone Freddy caused by climate change, well, that would have been a social issue ads. But test and learn. Key takeaways: plan ahead, research, give yourself time. Decide if you want to fly under the radar or whether to embrace the restrictions. If you're running ads about social and political issues, you probably want to embrace the restrictions. Be responsible, use this for good, not bad. We all know that. Be persistent. If you get rejected, be ready to implement feedback and just try again. There are hoops to jump through, but it is completely worth it if you want to give an opinion, if you want to actually run ads that actually make a difference. Thank you. That's it.